Okay, welcome to Pores and Pros. I wanted to sit on my couch today. I wanted to get cozy and comfortable, and it is a little cloudy, rainy outside, but no matter. We're still going to talk about books as I try and not let them fall off of my couch. This is going to be a video that I'm hoping will not be super long form, but you might see me film You might see me film part of it now, and then if I'm realizing and recognizing, oh, this is gonna take a long time, then I will create a part 2. I was thinking through what videos I should film in June as I'm trying to get back into the world of Booktube, and I kind of just realized, it's Juneteenth coming up really soon, a federal holiday that recently became a federal holiday that, to be honest with you, had no idea about until in around 2017, 2018 of my life. And since that occurred and some of that knowledge and education and building a community of friends, I have realized, I should read more diversely. And then this month I realized I should talk about this because typically speaking, you don't really see a lot of booktubers, specifically white women booktubers, talking about reading diverse authors. And it doesn't mean that they're not reading diversely. There's actually a few booktubers I follow that read very diversely, but just don't create a video talking about the why. And I actually want to talk about the why. So unfortunately, my booktube is on restricted mode. I'm trying to get that mediated and fixed. It's very, very frustrating. So if you could DM me for now on Instagram at Pores and Pros, and if you have been in a situation with the YouTube, please tell me what to do because it's very, very frustrating. Anyways, I'm yapping a bunch, but this video is going to really catalog my journey to becoming a diverse reader and why I like to read non-white authors, why I think it's really important, and yeah, my journey to do that and why I'm talking about it today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Cheers. Okay, so let me just say first off that I have, as you cannot tell, a pretty decent stack of books next to me. They are a little hidden from the camera for now, but don't worry, they will all get a moment to shine. And I also have my computer next to me because, to be honest, there's a lot of books that I have read in the past 8 years, and I really just can't remember them all. I can't remember when and the order of the books, and I have some honorable mentions as well that I want to talk about. So this is just for me. So with getting all of that preface out of the way, let me just say this video is not meant to condemn or judge anyone. It's more so to challenge, to encourage, and to also remind all of us out there that there are more than just white fantasy authors, white romance authors, and I am not saying anything is wrong with them. I've done multiple videos about those incredible writers, but I've had the unique ability and time in my life to really reflect and make sure that I am reading diversely, because when you read diversely, you are able to learn so much more about other cultures, ethnicities, races. You learn about your own biases, which that is the hard part sometimes about reading diversely, but I think it's important. And I believe that it is a moment of growth as a reader, as a mom, as a wife, and also, frankly, as a follower of Jesus Christ. So let's talk about it. So my journey, I'm actually going to back you up to high school. This was one of the first times that I read a book by a non-white author. It's actually co-written by a non-white author, and it is Same Kind of Different as Me by Ron Hall and Denver Moore. Funny enough, my high school math teacher had us all read this book. Now, we read this book because I was in an art history class with that teacher. I was homeschooled. You see crossover curriculum happening a lot in the homeschool world. Anyways, so this is the book right here, and it is an old one. It was published a long time ago. They've actually made a movie about this story, which is pretty good. I think the book is a little better, honestly. But yeah, this book was published in 2006, so it's been around for 20 years, and I truly remember reading this book and just going, this is written in a perspective I have never read before, a perspective of a Black homeless man. This is interesting, and it kind of was almost a doorway window unintentionally to me realizing how important it is to read from diverse speakers and authors and writers and hear their stories. And this was the first book that did that for me. I wanted to specifically highlight this book in this video because I think some people just need a really good starting point. They also may want a nonfiction starting point. And I'm actually going to start with all of my nonfiction recs first. But anyways, in talking about my journey to read diverse authors, I just remember reading this book and being so changed by it. I cried a lot in this book as a high school student. I remember reading and hearing Denver's experience throughout the book, and it just really catapulted me into a place of going, there's a lot of history here that I clearly don't know about, but I'm curious about. This kind of began, again, that domino effect of in high school reading this book and going, I'll think about this, but I don't know if I will do anything just yet. And then fast forward to 2018, I was a public high school math teacher working in a Title I low-income school, a very diverse school, demographically speaking and racially speaking, and also economically speaking. And was just going through that and being really challenged in a lot of ways with all the things that life challenges you with. I was also a part of a group called Be the Bridge with my church. I will also put a picture of the book Be the Bridge by Latasha Morrison if you're curious about that journey or a lot of what I went through and learned about and education-wise. And it was a life-changing group for me to be a part of. I met so many people of color through that group, but also just developed friendships that will last a lifetime, truthfully. And people that I know that are in my corner always. And if they're watching this, you know who you are. But all that to say, I just had to question a lot of my biases. But through that group, I also was given a lot of books to read to help educate me on Black history and history that I was frankly not given access to from the Black perspective. So I want to kind of talk about a couple books with that. One of them I do not have with me, and that's because I let somebody borrow and then I never got it back. But to be honest with you, we had moved to a different state at the time, and that friend reached out and said, oh, I can mail it to you. And I said, hey, just pass it along to somebody else. Just give it to somebody who is curious and wants to learn. And that is the book Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. I really want to get this book again and purchase it again, of course, because I want to support the author, but also because this book, similar to Same Kind of Different as Me, changed my life. I, up until this point, had not really understood the gravity of racism in our country, but it was a thing. I assumed that it was a thing that kind of ended in the 60s when civil rights was a thing and when Black people were trying to get free and equal rights. But I thought with all of that legislation that surely things had turned a corner. Surely things had changed. But this book kind of showed to me that that is not the case. So it challenged me in a lot of ways. It is written from the late 80s, early 90s, and it attacks and goes after the justice system in our country, particularly when it comes to people wrongfully convicted via death penalty. It is about a lawyer named Bryan Stevenson and his work and advocacy in that way, and it will challenge you. It will make you realize that there's still much work to be done, and it was transformational for me, and I cannot make this video without telling every person that they should read it. Anyways, I cannot make this video without talking about Just Mercy and telling everyone on here, if you're wanting a starting point, if you're wanting a spot to begin that is going to educate you, this is one that I cannot recommend highly enough. I believe every person in America should read this book, truly, because then it will really set you on a path of continually educating and learning and understanding that we have a lot of work to do still in our country. So, okay, next up, I'm gonna actually kind of like take a sidestep and talk about a nonfiction that is history, Black women history specifically. This book is Carved in Ebony by Jasmine Holmes. I read this book a couple summers ago, did a book club situation where I met with some women in my Bible study and we read this book and talked about it. And this is another one that I think everyone should read. It is, first of all, really short, but packed with beautiful women. All women that I had never ever ever heard of or learned about before. We have Elizabeth Freeman, Sarah Griffith Stanley, Nannie Helen Burroughs, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, Amanda Berry Smith, Maria Fearing, Maria Fearing, Maria Stewart. We have Lucy Craft Laney, Charlotte Fortin Grimke, which I think is probably one of my favorite women in this book. And then we have Sarah Mapps Douglas. This book, I just, first of all, have to say, the cover of this book is beautiful and gorgeous, but also this book is just packed full of information. These are about Christian women that lived roughly in the 1800s, a few in the early 1900s, but man, I wish as a child I would have learned about these women. My son is definitely going to learn about these women, and I cannot recommend this one enough if, again, you're wanting more history, you're wanting to learn, you are wanting to, specifically if you are in the Christian biblical space, this is a book I cannot highly recommend enough for that. This is another book where I think people in the church need to read it, frankly, and absolutely loved reading this book. The next book on here, or the next couple books on here, are books that are going to challenge you. And books that are, as if the books that I've recommended already won't challenge you, these will, with facts, statistics about racial inequality in this country and all of the things. So if you're ready, let's talk about it. First, we have White Fragility. I, like a silly girl, did not put the author of this book, but I will put a picture beside it. This one is going to give you more vocabulary and understanding. You really begin to kind of deep dive some of the microaggressions that we see in our country, things that still need change or haven't had enough change to occur. It talks about redlining. It talks about lots of things that, again, if you're wanting education on, you're wanting to understand, and you're open to that, I would definitely read this book. And then the other book, and it has a really unique title to it, it is Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? And Other Conversations About Race. A psychologist explains the development of racial identity by Beverly Daniel Tatum. This book, if you are a teacher watching this, I would highly recommend that you read this book. I have like several pages and notes in this book. I had it actually bookmarked on a chapter, but this one just will challenge you so deep, but it's really good. I actually need to reread this book because my son is in preschool now, and he is at a Title I school, and it is a very diverse school, and it talks about what happens with kids and how as they begin to progressively get older, some of those lines unintentionally, but maybe could be intentionally, are drawn in our country, and it's fascinating, like super interesting. And yeah, if you're a teacher watching this, as difficult of as a book it might be to read, every teacher should read this book. So I've kind of like, in a backwards and forwards way, talked through my journey of reading non-white authors, but if you cannot tell, I have done a lot of educating myself. I hope the people of color that are watching this video or may have stumbled upon this video are seeing that and understanding that I want to listen and educate myself on what's going on in our country, what's going on in history, and learning. I also cannot recommend enough that as Juneteenth approaches, if you are watching this and you really don't understand why we have made that a federal holiday, or why our black neighbors and black friends are celebrating this holiday, to not ask them, but to go educate yourself on it and read books, read articles, learn about why we celebrate Juneteenth. And then when you're done learning about Juneteenth, then continue on to the Oklahoma Massacre, and then continue on to X, Y, and Z. Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson, of all about the wrongfully conviction that our country perpetuated into the 80s and 90s, and even still some to this day. And I think you will begin to just understand and see. Those are all of my nonfiction educational recommendations from black authors, and that is for if you're really wanting to deep dive your racial bias, which is not an easy journey. And like I said earlier, I was a part of a Be the Bridge group. That is where I would recommend anyone start, especially if you are a Christian in this space. Okay, So those are all of my nonfiction authors, but I do have fiction authors that I have read as well. And we're not just going to talk about Black authors, we're also going to talk about Asian, Middle Eastern authors as well too. I currently have not read many Hispanic authors, and I would love recommendations. And it's not because I just haven't had a chance. As I'm trying to read more diversely over the past couple of years, not just in the nonfiction world, but now transitioning to the fiction world, just it takes time. It takes time to find books, it takes time to have the money to buy all the books, and I just hope that there is grace in that, but I also hope that there are recommendations in that, because I would love every and all of them. But this is what I have on my bookshelf so far. So I'm actually going to start with the Black authors that I have, and I feel like I'm missing one. Maybe not, because anyways. Oh, I am missing one, but I don't own this book yet. Okay, so these 4 books I have personally not read yet, but I have read a few of the authors of these books, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want to mention 2 books that I've read that are not on my bookshelves yet. The first one is James by Percival Everett. I read this book a couple months ago with some friends, really enjoyed it. This book is about basically the tale of Huckleberry Finn, but it's from the perspective of Jim the slave. You guys, this one will also challenge you, but it is so good. Incredibly fascinating. One where I just was on the edge of my seat going, man, like, why didn't we get Jim's perspective the first time that the story came out? And it was very good. The other book I want to talk about is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I do not own this book, and this is one where it was very educational for me, even though it was a fiction novel. Basically, this book is about 2 sisters who are kind of separated, not at birth, but they split up and kind of make 2 different decisions. One chooses to assimilate into white culture and pass as a lighter toned Black woman to try to pass as a white woman. And then the other sister fully embraces her Black heritage and Black culture and does not assimilate. And it is really interesting, very fascinating, but also as a white person reading it, it is very educational at the same time. And I really enjoyed that book a lot. I actually borrowed it from a friend, and so that is another one I'm kind of on the hunt for to purchase. So those are 2 fiction books that I have read. These 4 I have not read yet, and I'm really excited about it. So we're going to start with one that I'm definitely going to read this summer. This is also going to appear on my summer TBR, and this is the book Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. What I have read in the plot synopsis of this story is it kind of is giving mystery vibes, but it also dives into Caribbean culture, which is really fun. And so I'm really excited to read this one. It's basically about 2 siblings, 2 children named Byron and Benny, and there is a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe with a very long history, and their mom Eleanor, in a message, leaves behind for them just some interesting things about her life. She shares a story about a headstrong young swimmer who escapes her island home under suspicion of murder. There are secrets, there are long lost challenges and lineage things that occur that Byron and Benny have to face. And so this is written by Charmaine Wilkerson. She also wrote the book Good Dirt, and she has been somebody that I have seen recommendations for and just am getting around to reading her, and I'm so excited to have her be a non-white author, a Black woman author to read. Really excited about it. Okay, next up, let's talk about, because we just talked about her. So Britt Bennett wrote The Vanishing Half, and this is one of her other books, The Mothers. I'm going to be really real with you guys, because I'm keeping it real. I started this book a week ago, and I was just not in a good mental health place. Nothing wrong, nothing concerning, but when I started this book, I was like, ooh, I think this is going to be a really heavy read. It's going to be really good, but I might need to take a step back and find a time to read this when I'm in a little bit better of a personal headspace, to be honest. So this book is on my TBR. I really want to read it. It's The Mothers by Britt Bennett. This one is about two high school kids who fall in love, but the girl Nadia gets pregnant, and some of the choices she makes, we are going to follow throughout the book and see kind of what happens because of those choices she makes. And when I started this book, I got to the very beginning of her finding out she was pregnant and one of the choices she specifically wanted to make. And again, I think in the time in my life, I'm just not ready to read this quite yet. I'm walking through infertility personally, and so I'm just trying to protect myself in the best way that I can. I still really want to read this book though, and I love Britt Bennett as an author and cannot recommend her enough. Okay, the next two books. This one is really piquing my interest. This is a romance one. This is Score by Kennedy Ryan. She just published this book, and she is a Black female romance author, and one that I have seen floating around Goodreads, the Fable app, and I, on a whim, bought this book. But I have heard great reviews about this book. Essentially, it is two people that were in a relationship. They fell hard, they fell fast, and their names are Verity and Monk. And basically, they parted ways in college. Apparently, it was like not a great breakup, but now, almost a decade later, they have to work together on an epic Harlem Renaissance biopic. Monk is a world-class musician, and Verity is an award-winning screenwriter. And them coming back together to do this is what's really piquing my interest. So I'm really excited to read this one as well. Kennedy Ryan is an author I've heard amazing things about and just, again, have not had a chance. And honestly, I'm trying to find bookstores that carry her books, which now I have, so this will not be the last of this Kennedy Ryan, but that is Score by Kennedy Ryan. Okay, this one is, I believe, mystery historical fiction. This is Heaven and Earth by James McBride. I have had this book since January, and I'm purposely holding out until the summer to read, just because the plot synopsis, kind of what happens in this book is, to me, and the cover too, such a beautiful cover, just is screaming summertime. So I plan on reading this one in the next month or two. This is about, in 1972, workers in Pottstown, Pennsylvania find a skeleton at the bottom of a well. Who the skeleton was and how it got there are two secrets kept for decades by residents of Chicken Hill, a neighborhood where immigrant Jews and African Americans live. When the state tries to institutionalize a deaf black boy, it is Chona Ludlow, who runs the Heaven and Earth grocery store, and Nate Timblin, the black janitor at Moshe Ludlow's theater, who keep the boys safe. When the truth is revealed about the skeleton, the boy, and the part the town's white establishment played in both, James McBride shows us that even in dark times, it is love and community, heaven and earth, that sustain us. This one sounds so fascinating, but also really, really cool and interesting. I'm very, very curious to hear his perspective as a black man writing this book about immigrant Jews and African Americans living together. I am so excited to learn from him in a historical fiction novel, but still taking from a piece of history. And the premise of the storyline also is very, very gripping. Okay, so that is all of the current black authors that I have read and wanting to read, have on my bookshelf currently. I'm sure there will be more very soon. And I now want to talk about some other authors of other ethnicities and ethnic backgrounds and other authors of different races. So we have first Middle Eastern authors. I do not own this duology, but I want it and I'm looking for it in independent bookstores, and maybe I need to order it from my local fantasy bookstore. But that is The Jasad Aaron, The Jasad Crown by Sarah Hashem. This is an Egyptian-inspired fantasy duology. You guys, this author, what she weaves in from her perspective as an Egyptian woman is so fascinating, and why I love reading diverse authors, because of learning and growing. But also, man, she knows how to write and enemies to lovers, if I've ever seen one before. She took kind of that trope of genre for fantasy and really, really expanded it into an Egyptian culture and background. And oh my gosh, like these two books, nobody talks about this duology enough, and I'm getting really on my soapbox about it. But if you're somebody that likes duologies, if you're somebody that likes fantasy and especially romantasy that does an enemies to lovers trope really well, can I just tell you, you need to read a Sarah Hashem book. And also, Homegirl is coming out with more books and I cannot wait. And I'm so excited, and I love her books. And I love, again, weaving in her history and culture, and for me as a white woman to learn about that and be given a window into that. This is why I read diverse authors and why I encourage people to read diversely as well. Okay, next up, this is my other Middle Eastern author. She is Iranian. Or Iranian. I hope I'm saying, please somebody correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But she is from Tehran, Iran, and this is Marjan Kamali, The Lion Women of Tehran. You guys, I stumbled upon this book because I was just kind of seeing it, honestly, all over bookstores, and people were talking about it. I heard that it also had beautiful found family, a sisterhood, friendship for life, and I was very intrigued by that. And this book also kind of weaves in some of that historical fiction, particularly with Iran. And it cut me off. So I was talking about this holiday romance, A Little Holiday Fling by Farah Heron. This book, you guys, it is so good. I loved this one. It was a Christmas romance. But what was really cool was when I was looking for holiday romances, I said, like Farah Heron, that sounds as if it's an Asian, maybe Indian author. And sure enough, she's South Asian. And so what a cool way to read diversely, but also just find a fun holiday romance book. This book is about Ruby Donji and Rashid Hakim. He pretty much is like a Grinch of a character of huge grump, and Ruby is not. Ruby loves everything about Christmas, even if it's an American culture that she's not familiar with in terms of Christmas. It's really fun. It's a fun time. I'm honestly not even gonna read the whole synopsis. I think if you're wanting a good Christmas holiday romance, you need to just take my word for it and get this book for this Christmas. All right, we have two more books on hand. Actually, I want to talk about this one first. So this one is by an Asian author, R.F. Kuang. She has also written Babel. She's written the Poppy War series or the Poppy War trilogy. She's written Catabasis, and she has written Yellowface. This author, let me just say, first of all, I read Yellowface first by her, and it was a real interesting time and a really interesting read, and a book where R.F. Kuang really wants you to hate, but also simultaneously love the main character. She wants you to have a lot of grace for her, even though you really, really shouldn't. Basically, this book is about June, who is an aspiring author, wants to be a great writer, but not really getting great publishing deals or great looks. And meanwhile, her friend Athena is getting the best publishing deals, writing best-selling works, and June is not. This is not a spoiler. This happens like literally in the first chapter, but Athena and June are hanging out, and Athena chokes and dies. And June is in her house while the EMTs are on their way over to get her to figure out what's going on, and June stumbles upon a manuscript of Athena's, and instead of doing the right thing, she does a not so great thing, and she steals that manuscript. So June takes the manuscript and she publishes the book, and there are some very, very, very complicated things that happen because of that and because of what the book is about. But June's writing it as a white woman. It is very fascinating. This book is honestly I feel like a good summer vacation read because you will not want to put it down. It is so good, and it questions so many things in a fictional way. But man, oh man, did R.F. Kuang nail some things on the head? Yes, she did. And I've read Catabasis by her, and it was not my favorite book. But I still love her as an author, and I think she's amazing, and I want to read Poppy War and Babel by her as well too. Okay, last book. This is going to be your Halloween read. This is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is definitely a witchy read. This is about Mika Moon, who lives in Britain, and she is hiding her powers, and she actually goes to stay in London with 3 sisters who are trying to figure out their witchy powers, and they're a little dangerous to the society and to the world. And this is a really fun one if you're wanting to read a book with witchy vibes. I really want to read A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping that is also by Sangu Mandana. And I really enjoyed this one. And this author, I do believe, is Indian. She does live in England, which is really fun. But I love her writing. And again, when I was looking last fall specifically for what book should I read this fall, I had heard about this one and realized, oh, this is an Indian author. I'm trying to read more diversely, especially in my fiction reading. So let's go for it. And I got this book and did not disappoint. There were lots of books I talked through, and to be honest with you, I am kind of in a time crunch and had to record this video when I had time. But let me just say, maybe you're watching this video and going, yeah, like read diversely, sure, but like, is that something I have to do? You are entitled to read what you want to read. Everybody's entitled to make their own decision. But I'm here to tell you and to say that I am a better person and a better reader because I read non-white authors. I think it is so important now more than ever in our culture and in our world to read books, to sit with people that do not have the same background as us. Culturally, racially, ethnically, being in diverse groups of people is important. And it's what we need to do now more than ever before. And reading books, I believe, is one way to do that. And I hope that this video inspired you, if you're watching this, to read more diversely. And I hope that I spoke well of these authors, and I hope readers watching this who love these authors believe that I spoke well of them and their work, and I want to read more of their works. So I hope that you'll join me. Happy Juneteenth to all of those watching this video who celebrate. I hope that everyone has a happy month of reading, and I will see you next time. Cheers.